Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made using the November My Creative Scrapbook Limited Edition kit. I have to be very honest with you, I was going through a stage where I was just struggling with coming up with layouts that I liked. When this happens to me, I have a couple of things that I try, and one of them is to cut multiple strips of paper, ink the edges, and then layer them next to each other. I think this helps me get out of a rut because I really like the way it looks when you take different patterns from the same collection and make them really close together so that you could appreciate all the different colors and patterns of the collection. So I thought I would give it a try. At this point, I knew that I wanted to form them into a triangle, but I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to do that. I have several different widths of strips cut here. I end up only using the ones that are approximately ½ an inch wide. I didn't use those thinner strips on this particular layout. I like the idea of using these black pattern papers on the edge of the triangle. I thought that would help the triangle to stand out and be noticeable against the background. And then I started placing the strips down, alternating between a horizontal placement of the strip and a vertical placement of the strip. Whenever I am layering strips next to each other, I try to be strategic about which patterns look nice next to which patterns and including different colors and alternating between those colors, trying to spread them out across the entire area that I'm covering with the pattern papers. Next, I roughly cut away some of the strips of paper. I wanted to use some of those strips to cover the smaller area that I have to cover now. Over the years, I've used this technique of layering strips next to each other many times. Each time I try to make the layering a little bit different. I'll make different shapes and put the shapes in different places on the background. I find that it's very versatile and I really like the results. There's just something about it. I'm a big fan of going back to my old layouts and taking a look at what worked, what made me happy. That really helps to inspire me for the layouts that I'm creating now. I don't think you always have to come up with a brand new idea, and every page is going to look different because you're using different pattern papers and different embellishments. When I was all done, I used a paper trimmer to cut all of those excess pieces off of the triangle, and you can see that the triangle is going to go across the top of the page. Right now I'm inking the edges of a number of embellishments that I'm going to use with some distress ink in black soot. I'm going to use this beautiful piece of pattern paper for the background. I thought it was great because it has a lot of white areas, but it also has some embellishment too. And I thought that the triangle was really visible, really stood out against this paper. I had this little piece of plaid paper that I put on the bottom. I was going to use that on another layout and then decided against it. So I thought that it would go nicely on the bottom right-hand side of this layout. I have my photo right above it. That's a photo of my daughter Julia at Christmas time. And then I have a number of Christmas florals. I have some holly leaves and berries. I also have some poinsettias. These are all from the die cut and laser cut packs that we get in this kit. For the title, I'm using this die cut Merriest. I inked it with some black soot. I think that it's perfect for this layout. I love when there are titles included in the die cut packs. Very often 49 and Market includes them, and I think that it's great to have titles that coordinate with everything else on the page. I tucked the holly leaves in a couple of different places, including to the left of the triangle. I also put some behind the title, and then I put a couple on that little cluster in the lower right-hand corner. I also included some die-cut poinsettias. There were a number of them in the kit in a couple of slightly different sizes, so I placed them in the different clusters around the layout. I tucked a little postcard into that cluster on the bottom along with a sentiment. And I forgot to mention that there was already some modeling paste on this piece of pattern paper before I started the layout. I had attempted to make a different layout and I added some modeling paste, and luckily the modeling paste that I added went along just fine with this layout. I also wanted to have a little bit of modeling paste on the right-hand side of the large triangle, so I added that. It's not the most convenient time to add modeling paste after you've already attached some of the elements down to the page, but luckily I was able to get the modeling paste behind the large triangle just by holding it up. I used my heat tool to help dry the modeling paste, and then later on, after it was dry, I reattached that triangle back down on the right-hand side. Now I want to embellish the layout with some of the dimensional flowers. I have these two beautiful flowers from Prima Marketing with some gold edges that I added to the area above the photo and also to the title cluster. And then I added a few more of those die cut poinsettias in as well. I added some adhesive foam squares to the back of the title to give it some dimension. I wanted to give a small poinsettia that's on the bottom right hand side of the title a little bit of dimension, so I added some foam to that as well. And then underneath the title there's a sentiment that says Christmas wishes, and I added some foam squares to that also. There were also some cute die cuts of buttons, so I included one of the buttons on the left hand side of the sentiment. Since I added some dimension to one of the poinsettias in the title cluster, I thought I would do the same thing in the cluster on the bottom of the layout. So I popped up that smallest poinsettia on some foam, and then I did the same thing to the little sentiment right next to the poinsettias that says Merry. The sentiment to the right-hand side of the photo that says it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas looked a little bit bare to me, so I added a holly leaf with some berries on it on the top of it. I added one of those same buttons that I added to the title cluster to the cluster on the bottom of the page. Since I had added dimension to most of the poinsettias on the page, I decided to put some foam behind the two die cut poinsettias on top of the photo, and then I also added some holly leaves to that cluster. Next, I wanted to add some pine branches to some of the clusters. I had some green pine branches and some white ones as well, but when I put the green ones on the layout, I knew that I was going to use those. I thought that they looked a lot better with the colors on this layout. I use a lot of pine branch die cuts on my layouts, especially the Christmas ones. So instead of cutting them out as I make a layout, I made a whole bunch of them in advance. I used a number of different pine branch dies. I also used a couple of different papers. I had some scraps of a very shiny green paper that I used, and I also had another paper that was more of a shimmer paper. So now I'm tucking those die cut branches into the clusters that I have on the layout. In the upper left-hand corner, I have two poinsettias. I end up removing those. I just thought that it was a little bit of overkill. I didn't want too many poinsettias on the page. In my stash of die cuts, I realized that I had these two really pretty gold embossed branches. I had made those for another layout, and they were some leftovers. I only had two of them, but I decided that I really liked the way that they looked tucked into that large cluster on top of the photo, so I decided to use them even though I only had two of them. I'm using my favorite punch, my EK Success Scalloped Photo Corner Punch, to create some photo corners for this photo. I used the plaid paper that I used at the bottom of the layout, and I punched out 4 of them. I inked the edges with some black soot distress ink, and then I attached them down. I wasn't sure if I really needed the 2 photo corners at the top of the photo because I had so many embellishments. I didn't know if you'd be able to see them, but I decided to include them anyway, just in case you would be able to see a little bit of them through the leaves or the petals of the poinsettias. I'm going to begin to attach some of these embellishments down to the page. I use some Aleene's gel glue to attach down those larger dimensional flowers. I also use the gel glue to attach down the pine branches. I continue to glue down any elements that weren't already attached down to the page. For some of the elements on the page, I used some ATG adhesive. I used them on those gold embossed branches. I don't think I was 100% convinced that I should have just 2 of those branches on the page, but in the end, I was happy that I included them. You might have seen I just gave the page a little bit of a shake. That is just a little test to make sure that everything is attached down. To add some finishing touches to the page, I chose these self-adhesive red pearls. I attached them down to the photo corners, to the sentiment under the title, and then also to the little sentiment on the right that says Merry. I attached down the holly leaves around that large triangle, and that was the very last touch. This layout is complete, and here are some close-ups. I so appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you take a look in the description box, you'll find a link to the My Creative Scrapbook website. You could check out this gorgeous kit. This is the limited edition kit, and then you can also check out all of the other kits that they have available, and you can purchase a subscription if you're interested. I hope that you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.